I worked as a third shift security guard at a brewery. My first week of working there, something just felt off. I just dismissed it as being a new work environment, plus me being alone at night. There are two main buildings on the same property, the brewery and the bar, about 200 feet away though. The third shift guards hang out around the bar at night since it has a good overlook of the facility. The lights automatically turn off and come on with motion, so it's basically a motion detecting light. I was coming back from patrolling around the facility. The lights in the main room and the back room were off, but the door to the back room was open. I walked into the bar like normal, and the lights came on after I took a few steps inside. Then I froze. In that doorway, there was a thing. Humanoid, but not quite. Its arms were way too long, and its hair covered most of its upper body. The doorway was almost too small for it to get through. But after a few seconds, I blinked, and it was gone. Apparently, I'm not the only one who's seen it. After asking around a bit, a few of the day shift guards seem to know what I'm talking about, but most refuse to talk about him. I say him because it looked more like a man, even though it was humanoid and hard to tell. Anyway, over the next few weeks, I had a few more run-ins with him, but only in the bar. I thought he couldn't leave. One of the main public areas inside the brewery had a set of two doors, the outside and inside doors, kind of like an airlock. When you scan your access card after hours, the doors automatically open, then close after about 30 seconds. The outside door has a tendency to get stuck though, so I stood in that airlock space, looking outside, waiting for the door to close. The inside door closed first behind me, then the outside door closed. As it did, I see in the reflection the thing standing right behind me, towering over me, staring down. Long arms hanging on its side, and face bigger than it should have been. I no longer stand in that space when I wait for the doors to close. I go inside, turn the lights on, and then turn around and wait for the doors to close, because I never know if I'll be seeing him again in my reflection, standing behind me. I was the last overnight shift watch guard on a naval air station in a building that did advanced maintenance on planes but was not a hangar. Around 2 a.m. on my rounds, I hear people talking from the mechanic shop. No big deal, as sometimes those guys pull all-nighters or ask them to come in early. I go down there because I'm bored, but all the lights are off and it's empty. Weird. I tell the senior watch on duty in the front of the building, and he says no one has signed in and it's just the two of us. About an hour later, I hear it again while walking around, and I investigate. Lights are out, and no one is there. The third time it happens though, it's about 4 a.m., and the senior watch and I are sitting up front watching TV, and both clearly hear tools being thrown around the mechanic shop, clanging on the floor, and hollow banging against an engine that was in there. Now I know I'm not crazy because my senior watch can also hear it. He tells me to go see what's going on, and I tell him no way, and he could go look for himself. He shrugs it off and goes back to watching TV. I check in with the mechanic guys the next day, and they say that their tools had not been moved and no one had been there overnight. It still creeps me out to think who was in there. Was it haunted? Was there some paranormal activity going on? Maybe we'll never know. During my time as a sheriff's deputy, I worked as a night guard for a local branch of a massive investment firm for some extra cash. I worked the 4 p.m. to 12 a.m. shifts on weekends. There were only 2 guards on the shift at any time. The facility was 3 buildings across a 4-acre property, gated and on the tail end of an industrial park, and on the border of a really rough neighborhood. One night, I was on guard during December, and a lot of the desks were covered in Christmas decorations and wrapping paper. The other guard was a fellow soldier with me in the National Guard, so we both knew we were trained and had each other's back. Suddenly, my radio lit up, and my buddy told me the cameras in one of the cubicle areas were feeding black, and he thought the lights were out. My job was to walk over there and reset the breaker and get the lights back on. I turned around and began to walk down the hallway. It was absolutely pitch black. The air felt cold, and my flashlight felt darker than normal. Something wasn't right. My heartbeat began to speed up as I remembered the breaker room was all the way in the back, near the server, and I had to walk down at least 40 rows of the cubicles to get there. I kept hearing this odd clicking sound as I began to slowly walk through the cubicle row. Suddenly, I saw a silhouette crouched down behind 2 cubicles in the back. I pressed the radio twice to signal my buddy to get 911 on standby. I began to slowly walk towards it while issuing verbal commands, such as stand up, face me now. I yelled at the silhouette, wondering why it wasn't moving. As my flashlight hit it, I saw it was a clown statue holding a Charlie Brown Christmas tree. I laughed. My hands were shaking. I was sweaty, and I was genuinely happy that I didn't have to use force or possibly take a life that night. I felt so relieved. I walked up to it, planning to move it back inside of the cubicle to get it out of our way. Suddenly, it lit up and laughed, loudly and sharply. It scared me so much that I took off running. The thing absolutely caught me off guard and scared the living shit out of me. Nothing scared me as much as that clown laughing at me did. Even though it was just a statue, it still creeped me out. I ran all the way back to the front desk and made my buddy get the lights on. I'm not even scared of clowns normally, but that one in particular would continue to creep me out for the rest of my time I worked there.